Alright, Cowboys fan, we need to talk about Micah Parsons. Something he said recently has sparked a wave of speculation. Was it just an innocent comment? Or was he sending a direct message to the Cowboys front office? Parsons was on ESPN radio, and in the middle of the conversation, he made some remarks that immediately caught everyone's attention. He talked about how teams are structuring their rosters and hinted at a key issue the Cowboys are facing. Now, the moment those words left his mouth, social media exploded. Fans started dissecting every syllable, trying to figure out if Parsons was subtly calling out the organization. And let's be honest, Parsons isn't the type to hold back. He speaks his mind, and when he does, people listen. But the question is, what exactly was he trying to say? Was this a shot at the Cowboys' decision-making? A sign of frustration? Or are we reading too much into it? Let me know in the comments. Do you think Parsons was sending a direct message to the Cowboys? Or is this just fans overreacting? Vote below and tell me what you think. Now here's where things get even more interesting. Parsons didn't just make a vague statement, he specifically talked about quarterback contracts. And when a star player like him starts discussing how teams are structuring their rosters, it's worth paying attention to. On ESPN radio, Parsons pointed out that certain teams are going all in while their quarterbacks are still on smaller contracts. And, let's be real, that's not exactly the situation in Dallas, is it? Prescott's contract is one of the biggest in the league. And with another extension possibly on the horizon, the Cowboys are in a tricky spot when it comes to managing the salary cap. Think about teams like the 49ers with Brock Purdy, or even the Eagles when Jalen Hurts was still on his rookie deal. Those teams had the flexibility to stack talent around their QB. Meanwhile, the Cowboys? They've had to make tough financial decisions just to stay competitive. Was Parsons hinting that the Cowboys should have taken a different approach? Or was he simply stating a fact about how the NFL works? What do you think? Should the Cowboys rethink their strategy and take the all-in approach with a cheaper quarterback? Drop your vote in the comments and let's see where the fan base stands on this. Now, if you thought Parsons' comments about quarterback contracts were eye-opening, wait until you hear this next part. He didn't just talk about money, he also made a point about player development. And honestly, this one might sting a little. Parsons mentioned that players need to take more responsibility in developing younger guys. Now at first glance, that sounds like a good leadership mindset. But think about it, shouldn't that be the coaching staff's job? If players are stepping in to fill that role, does that mean the coaches aren't doing enough? It's a fair question, especially considering how the Cowboys have struggled with developing defensive talent over the years. Sure, they've hit on some draft picks. Parsons himself is proof of that. But how many young defenders have we seen fail to take the next step? Could that be part of the reason why the Cowboys always seem to fall short when it matters most? So what do you think? Is this a coaching problem or a player problem? Drop your take in the comments and let's break it down together. Now this is where things get even more interesting. Parsons didn't just talk about contracts or player development, he also hinted at something that could be a much bigger problem for the Cowboys. He mentioned a disconnect between the old and the young on the team. And if you've been following the Cowboys for a while, this isn't the first time we've heard something like this. Could there be a real divide in the locker room? Think about it. On one side, you've got veterans like DeMarcus Lawrence, Zach Martin, and Tyron Smith, guys who have been here for years and know the struggles of trying to win in Dallas. On the other, you've got young stars like Parsons, CeeDee Lamb, and Darren Bland, players who are hungry for success, but may see things differently. If these two groups aren't on the same page, how does that affect the team's chemistry? We've seen how locker room divides can tear teams apart. The question is that happening in Dallas right now? Do you think there's a real split in the Cowboys locker room, or is Parsons just reading too much into it? Vote in the comments and let's see what the fans think. With all these comments from Micah Parsons, One thing is clear, he's not afraid to speak his mind. But here's the real question. Is he ready to be the leader of this team? Parsons himself has said that he's taking on a leadership role in the locker room. That's a big statement. We know he's a superstar on the field, but being the face of the franchise is something entirely different. It's about more than just sacks and tackles. It's about setting the tone for the entire team. Some of the best defenses in history have been built around dominant leaders. Think about Ray Lewis with the Ravens, Aaron Donald with the Rams, or even DeMarcus Ware back in his Cowboys days. They weren't just great players, they were the heart and soul of their teams. So where does Parsons fit into that conversation? Is he ready to take that next step and be the guy for Dallas? Or does he still have more to prove? Let me know in the comments. Is Parsons the leader the Cowboys need right now? So after everything Parsons has said, we're left with a big question. What's really holding the Cowboys back? Is it the coaching? The players? Or is it something deeper, like the culture of the franchise itself? Year after year, this team has the talent to compete. But when it comes down to it, something always seems to go wrong. Parsons' comments suggest frustration, not just with how the roster is built, but with how the team is being developed. And honestly, he's not the only one thinking that. If the Cowboys want to get over the hump, something has to change. But what's the biggest issue? Let me know in the comments. Is it coaching, player mentality, or the way the front office operates? I want to hear your take. And hey, if you've enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Cowboys updates. See you in the next one.